Hello everyone and welcome back. I hope that you've all been doing well and are enjoying the start of the holiday season. It is December 11th and a little bit earlier than I would normally be doing some of these garden tours, but I'm going to be heading out tomorrow for the rest of the month for some holiday travels, and so I realized today is kind of the last day that I'll have to spend any time in the garden. It's a pretty gray and wet day here in Portland, so not really ideal working in the garden weather, but as far as Portland goes this time of year, this is kind of the best that you're gonna get. And it's also a little bit later in the day than I would have liked to have gotten started, but as it's my last day before heading out for a long trip, naturally it's been pretty busy, so I'm getting out here as soon as I can. I've got the lights on behind me, so hopefully that'll keep things nice and lit if it starts getting too dark while I'm out here. Thought I'd spend some time today just out here working in the garden, cutting some things back. All of the stuff that's died back can probably be cut down now, and clearing out the garden bed to kind of get it ready for overwintering. So yeah, it's a little colder and wetter than I would have liked to be out here doing garden work, but I've got my cup of tea here to keep me warm, and let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned in the last video, at this point most of the stuff in our garden has died back and it's ready to be cut down for the winter. So that's what I'm going to be doing today, is just cleaning out this flower bed. This is what the flowers are looking like at this point. Even though there's still some greenery left, I'm still going to go ahead and cut most of these just back down to the base. And for now, probably make a little pile of all of the stuff that I cut, and then have either me or Kyle come back and use that stuff to remulch the soil over the winter. My plan is to leave some of these plants, not cut them back all the way to the base so that I can still identify what they are, because I actually want to move some of these plants around. Some of the flowers I planted a little too close together, and I'd like to space them out a little bit more, so that's the plan, and we'll see how that goes. If I have time today, I think I'll also try to clean out this garden bed. This is the one that I was planning on planting some garlic in. As you can see, I haven't gone around to that yet, so we're nearing probably the point where it's too late in the year to plant it, but you know, I'm gonna go ahead and try and see what happens. Here's kind of what the rest of the yard is looking like. To be honest, we have not really done anything since I made the last video in November. We did have our first snow though, which was kind of wild and unexpected for me, probably just because I wasn't checking the weather, but between the wind and the snow melting and the water kind of sweeping everything away, it actually looks a lot cleaner out here than it did. All the leaves kind of were naturally swept away, so this is what it's looking like. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. All right, y'all, so here we are getting started. I'm doing a little voiceover action this month. Whoa. I thought that in addition to just showing you the kind of general tour around the garden like I normally do, that it'd also be helpful and interesting to include some footage of like what the actual working in the garden process looks like, so you could see that as well. I'm sure I've mentioned this already a few times in my previous videos, but generally speaking, the spring and summer months are obviously the like busiest for gardening as far as maintenance and work that's required. So springtime, you're getting all the plants, a lot of them ready, like vegetable starters, flower starters, things like that. Oh, look at that quail. And summertime, obviously, especially in our climate, we're outside a lot watering, making sure that the plants are growing in nicely and taking care of them, and then leading right up to when they harvest. And so now in the fall/winter, because I'm doing this kind of late, this is generally the last time for the year that you have to come out and spend a considerable amount of work in the garden, doing maintenance. In the fall, as I've said, is when you kind of come through and cut everything back after all the foliage has died. And after this kind of like final clearing out of all the dead stuff and like last year's growth, things generally start to slow down a lot in the garden. There's less to maintain, there's less work that you need to be doing, and especially here in Portland where we get so much moisture in, you know, the rest of the year now, you really don't have to spend any time outside watering or anything like that, and we kind of just let the plants do what they do throughout the winter and the beginning of spring until we're ready to start coming out again and prepping for next year. And remember, y'all, that gardening is a lot of work on your body, so it's important to stand up and stretch every once in a while, move around, give your body some love, and make sure that you're just being mindful of your body, your posture, all that stuff while you're out here gardening. A lot of people find it helpful to use things like little foam knee pads while they're out in the garden so they can be on their knees. I have one of those somewhere, but I'm not sure where it is, and I was in too much of a rush to go find it when I was doing this. But yeah, just remember to take some time and check in with your body when you're out there too. And oh, I got something caught on my arm there. And yeah, you don't want to hurt yourself while you're out there, especially if you're like me and you're getting older and your body doesn't work the way that it used to. So as I mentioned, as I'm cutting these down, I'm not cutting them all the way down to the ground because I want to leave enough of the plant out so that I can still identify what it is. Because one of the things that I do plan on doing over the winter is moving some of these bulbs around and splitting up some of these larger perennial plants. At the time when we planted them all, we were just, you know, excited to get them in the ground, and I wasn't really paying as much attention to like the coloring of the flowers, and so as a result we've got a lot of flowers of similar color, similar kind of purplish or dark pink color near each other, and also a few plants like the asters and the mums are so close together that the chrysanthemums tend to overgrow and shadow the asters so that they don't really grow to their full potential. So that's one thing I'd like to do over the winter is divvy up those plants, maybe put some of them in pots even, and then spread them out a little bit more nicely throughout this bed so that not only can the plants grow better, but that the colors look nice as well. Okay, and this is just a quick reminder to be careful when you're doing this work, because if you're not, you can pull out a whole bulb like I did just now, instead of just chopping off the foliage like I meant to. This is a gladiolus bulb, which is one of the perennial flowers that we have planted back here, so they're normally pretty hardy. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that back in the dirt and be a little more careful next time. Alright y'all, so it is definitely getting dark at this point, but I just wanted to show you kind of everything that I chopped down. I'm thinking I might actually just, for now, move all of this back onto the garden bed and leave it there instead of just leaving it out here in the middle. But before I did that, I wanted to just kind of come through and show you all some little things that I was noticing. So as I've mentioned before, in my other videos, two of the main flowers that we have here in this bed that I really would like absolutely recommend are chrysanthemums and asters. They're both perennial and fall blooming, so they provide a lot of, they come back year after year and they provide a lot of really beautiful color in the fall when most of the other flowers are typically dying back. So they're really awesome. And I wanted to show you guys that so like right here, this was a big chrysanthemum plant. And even though like this year's growth is all died back already and I cut it down, if you look closely, you can see all of this green stuff is the new growth for next year. And yeah, so that's what's so awesome about these plants, is that like, even though I'm just cutting them down now, within a month or so, this green foliage will be pretty big, like maybe this size. And so even though there won't be flowers and colorful flowers like that for the rest of the year, there will still be like some greenery. So it's nice, it keeps your garden, especially here where we have such kind of gray falls and winters and springs. It's nice to have like extra greenery year round. So that's one of the reasons why I really love them. I kept some of the greenery from, I believe this is one of the asters, because these leaves just look still so fresh that I didn't want to cut them down yet. I did the same over here, where I decided to keep these asters for now, just because the leaves still look pretty fresh. So, you know, I might as well keep some greenery while we can. But even here, if you look down below, you can see some of that new growth for next year. So they're just really awesome. They're really fast growing, and give your garden a lot of color year round. All right, so yes, it is definitely getting dark, but I am gonna spend the rest of the time that I have before I have to get ready and go watch the White Lotus season finale at my friend's house, here cleaning out this garden bed. And I'm hoping that maybe if I can get it clear, perhaps I can convince Kyle to come through and plant that garlic in the next couple days after I leave. So yeah, let's get going. All right, and for this garden bed, what I'm doing is taking out all of the dead vegetable plants from this summer that, as annual plants, after the growing season is done and all the fruit is harvested, you can go ahead and just cut down the plants and take them out of the garden bed. So right now I'm taking out all of the different pepper plants that we had. This year we had jalapeno peppers, serrano peppers, poblanos, marconis, and I think that was it. Our peppers actually did really well this year. I'm also taking out the old cucumber vines. In this garden bed we had one of our pickling cucumbers, which, as I've talked about before, did a fine job growing along that trellis that Kyle built, which is awesome. But in hindsight, we probably will stick to regular cucumbers next year instead of doing the pickling cucumbers, or at least doing 2 of them. In addition to all of the old vegetable plants, as you can see, there's a lot of greenery that's grown in this bed, and I wanted to identify what it is that's growing, because a lot of the times what we like to think of as weeds, or what we commonly think of as weeds in the garden or in our lawns, are actually an indicator of what's going on in the soil. So you might find that certain flowers, certain types of weeds will grow in soil that's more acidic or lacking a certain nutrients. And so we had a lot of this stuff growing in our garden bed, and from what I've been able to identify it as, I think it's purple dead nettle, which is a member of the mint family. And I wanted to look up what dead nettle signifies or indicates for soil health, and based on what I was able to find, it says that dead nettle usually indicates neutral and nutrient-rich soil, which is awesome and makes sense because Kyle and I do like to fertilize this soil in the spring every year at the beginning of the growing season. So yeah, just a little tip that if you notice particular things growing in your garden, it's not a bad idea to look them up and see if those particular plants can indicate something specific for the health of your soil. So as I've mentioned, I am digging up all of this stuff that's currently in the bed because I want to clear everything out so I have space to plant some garlic, even though it is getting pretty late in the season to be planting it. I've never grown garlic before. I think normally you plant it in like October, so I am a couple months late, but I figured I'd go ahead and give it a go and just kind of see what happens. Gardening is kind of a learning process like that, so there's no harm in just trying something out. But yeah, so that is why I'm clearing out all of this dead nettle from the garden bed. Another option is to plant what are called cover crops, which are different plants that you can plant in your garden over the winter and the spring to help protect the soil and bring nutrients into the soil before you're ready to plant next year's vegetables or flowers and whatnot. We don't normally plant cover crops given how small our garden is, but I think when you're in a bigger setting, maybe it's more helpful and beneficial for your garden. For now, I'm just gonna stick with planting this garlic and seeing how we do with that. So that about does it for this month's garden tour video. I was able to clear out the rest of this bed before it got too dark, but I didn't record much more after that. So for now, I'll say my goodbyes as I'm finishing up here. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the holiday season and have safe travels and enjoy spending time with your family or your loved ones. And we'll see you again real soon. Take care.